there we go. Welcome everybody to the North Suburban Chicago Tableau user group. This is our Q1 meeting. I'm going to do a short intro, very short, and then we're going to jump right into the content because we've got lots of great stuff. So with that, I'm going to jump into what the agenda is today. You'll see on the agenda it says literally 2 minutes for intros. That's all we're going to do. And then we're going to get right into the content. So I will talk for 2 minutes. Then we've got Kevin is up first with Tableau tipping. Then Geoff is up with Tableau features and a TabPy highlight. And then Brian's up with a session on challenging UI assumptions. And at the very end, we'll talk a little bit about some options for the next meeting and wrap up. And that is it. It's going to be a lightning fast session with lots of great content. Very briefly, who am I? Just very briefly. Alex, Stephen Pataki. I've been in the BI space for a billion years. Love Tableau. I think the first Tableau, I brought up the first Tableau server at Baxter. I think it was Tableau 7. So it's been a while. And, oh, data science. Yeah, that's done. I should take that out. And that's that. A couple quick notes about the user group, where to find us. If you search North Suburban Chicago Tableau user group, you will find the group on LinkedIn from that name. You can use this link too. I'll put it in the chat, and I'll put it in there right now. Let's say everyone user group link. We do all our communications via LinkedIn, so any kind of notifications about meetings or anything else is going to be there. There is also this Tug community link in the Tableau site. I would say the LinkedIn is probably your best way to go, but you can also look there as well. And as always, and it was in the meeting invite, it's a call for volunteers. So do you want to help with session ideas? Finding speakers. Do you have some ideas for how we can do things differently? I'd love to hear about them. Right? Love to hear about them. I did get one person who indicated some interest after the last meeting that I need to chat with a bit more, but if anyone else wants to, please reach out, okay? And with that, that's enough of me talking. Let's get to our first awesome speaker, and by awesome, I am not overestimating that. Kevin, you are up first.
All right, thank you so much, Alex. Let me share my screen.
Oh, and I am wearing my my orange in solidarity with our Cincinnati friends, including Kevin.
Thank you.
Bengals in the Super Bowl. So there we go.
Thank you. We'll touch on that here momentarily. Everybody see my screen? Hear me okay?
Yep.
Alex, good? All right, cool. All right, today I'm going to be talking some Tableau tips, plus what I have here is tips you never saw coming. We'll get to what that actually means here momentarily. My name is Kevin Fleurlidge. I am a Tableau Zen Master. That is a real thing, nominated by the community and selected by Tableau. I'm a 2-time Zen Master, and there are 41 in the world plus 12 Hall of Fame Zen Masters, so 43 in the world currently right now. I am an identical twin. You may recognize that. I'm on the left here, my twin brother Ken on the right. He's a 4-time Zen Master. And we run the website fleurlidgetwins.com, where you see lots of Tableau content. We are identical twins, and the question always is, how alike are we? Well, we can use some data to kind of dig into that. Number one, where do we live? Well, I live in a town called Burlington, Kentucky. It's about 20 minutes outside of Cincinnati, Ohio, which Alex just mentioned. Bengals in the Super Bowl, yay. Ken lives in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, which is 20 minutes outside of absolutely nothingness. It's 3 hours from Pittsburgh, 3 hours from Philadelphia, 3 hours from Cleveland. It's near absolutely nothing, maybe some cow pastures. What we like to visualize. Well, Ken tends to like to visualize serious topics like religion, armed conflict, war, endangered species, and politics, where I tackle the really hard-hitting subjects like Adam Sandler, video games, cartoons, and famous hot dog eating competitions. This guy here, Joey Chestnut, ate like 72 hot dogs and buns in like 10 minutes. Pretty crazy stuff. But the question always is, who's the best at this Tableau stuff? And we can use some data to figure that out. There's a guy named Josh Tapley who created something called Cerebro. I can never say that. And it basically scraped Tableau Public and figured out all these different metrics. One of those is number of followers on Tableau Public. Andy Kriebel at the top of the list, as always. He's at the top of every Tableau list. I'm number 3, and Ken a distant 4th. Pretty lame stuff from Ken. And if we look at number of favorites on Tableau, Andy Kriebel, number 1. I'm actually number 2 all time. This is super exciting. Feel super blessed for that. And Ken, well, again, a distant 3rd, so pretty lame. The truth is, I mentioned Ken being a 4-time Zen master, me being a 2-time Zen master. Before I even downloaded Tableau, Ken was a Tableau Zen master. He has lots of experience in data. He was a DBA for a long time. So I'm going to give the nod to Ken. He is the best. I've learned a lot from him. So Ken, you win. This is all the about me stuff. We kind of already talked about that. Alex mentioned as well, my Bengals are in the Super Bowl this year. Woohoo! It's been since 1989, I believe, and they've never won one. So pretty excited about that. So excited that I had to, mock up a little helmet with me in it. So, and I'm going to do something I've never done on a Tableau user group. I'm going to predict the winning score of this game. So, but before I do that, I'm going to stop my camera, and I got to prepare for this. So just 1 second, just bear with me. You might hear some noise, so hold on 1 sec. Coming, I promise. All right, I'm coming. All right, my prediction is, you guys see me? Prediction is the Bengals 182 to -3. All right, hopefully you Bears fans knew and got that, but maybe not. All right. I hope there's like tons of laughter going on that I just can't hear right now. So, all right, enough of that shenanigans. We're going to be talking about Tableau tipping, and we're going to be talking about tips you never saw coming. Those are, well, we'll get to that when we get to it. So, all right, let's get into Tableau. Alex, can you just confirm you can see my screen okay?
Yep, I can see it.
All right, cool. And there was
That was
like
awesome, by
lots
the
of
way.
laughter on the Bengals joke, right?
That was awesome.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure. Virtually, you don't know. So if I would have done that in person, I'm expecting like an eruption of laughter, right? Maybe not. All right. So we're going to be doing a bunch of Tableau tips. I'm going to do them kind of quickly, and let's get to it. So what I have here is just sales by subcategory, and I've got a couple of these highlighted in orange. They're highlighted in orange. Maybe we want to be concerned about them. If you look up here, I got them noted as concerned. So what I'm going to show is a fairly new feature called the in operator, and that was introduced into Tableau last year. So right now, what I have this set up as is just a simple case statement that's saying when art, then it's a concern. When it's machines or when it's chairs, it's a concern, else no concern. And those are the ones that I put this calculation on color, and I've got these sort of orange flags here. So we can change this into the in operator. First tip is, if you're doing a presentation, you can hit the control on a PC and hit your mouse window, and you can zoom into these calculations. It makes it really nice for doing presentations. So I want to change this to the in operator, but I don't want to delete this because I want to see what we have. So I'm just going to start commenting these things out. And this is taking a little while. You may not know, but Tableau also just recently introduced block comments. So using the slash and the asterisk key like you might in SQL. So let's swap that out. Let's get rid of these so I can start deleting these. And if I delete them one at a time, that takes a while. I can actually hit the shift key, arrow to the right, and then while holding shift, I can press and hold the alt key, and I can block select as well. So kind of cool. All right, so let's just block comment these out. So I use a block comment. I don't have to type the slash 10 or 12 different times. I can just type those. All right, now that's comment out. Let's create a in statement. So instead of this case statement, I'm going to just say if subcategory in, and just if you're a SQL guy, you'll understand exactly what this is doing, but then we're just going to list out these subcategories. I'm just going to do the two of them. So we have to type that much concern, else no concern, end. All right. So if subcategory is in art or machines, then flag it as a concern, else no concern. If I hit OK, then that one pops out because I didn't list it in there. So really simple way to kind of clean up. I don't have to put all these wins and wins and wins. If I had this as 30 lines, I could just list them out and I don't have to when, then, everything in my case statement. All right, one of the common uses of a fixed LOD might be to get the latest date in a data set. In this case, it's sorted descending by date, and you can see the latest date is December 2018. Well, I might want a field that just always shows December 2018. How might we create that? Well, pretty simple fixed LOD, fixed on the entire data set, give me the max month of the order date, right? So then I'll drag this. Let's make sure it's right. I'll drag it onto rows. It aggregates up to year. So let's just pick exact date. Turned into continuous. Now let's change it back to discrete. All right, I got to December 2018. I could do all that, or I could just pull that thing off, and I could, instead of just left click and drag, I can right click and drag that under rows. It now gives me this separate context menu. If I pick this first one, it's going to give me that December 2018, and I don't have to do that. Change the exact date, change the continuous, change the discrete stuff. Now I call this next part fixed LOD, save the fixed, hold the fixed. Sorry, not save the fixed. I messed up the joke. If you have a fixed LOD that's fixed on the entire data set, you don't even need the word fixed. You can get rid of that altogether. This calculation is on my rows right now. I've hit OK, exactly the same. So you do not need to write fixed if you're fixing it on the entire data set. Personally, I do. I just think it's easier for other people to understand what you're doing with it. Now, speaking of fixed LODs, recently Tableau introduced quick LODs. This is kind of cool. So I've just got category and subcategory and showing sales. Now, what if I wanted a fixed LOD to calculate the sum of sales for the entire category? I could write a calculation to do that, or I can use a quick LOD. How do we do that? We're interested in sales. I'm going to hit the control and hold the control key. Then I'm going to pick category. Now I'm going to right click and hit create LOD calculation. You see what that did? Fixed on the category, give me the sum of sales, right? Hit OK, put that on my measure values. You can see some numbers you're probably used to seeing if you're ever using Superstore. There's another way to do that. If I take sales and I drag it up here, now if I normally just drag it, you can see this little dimension measures thing is going to turn sales into a dimension. I don't want that. So if I drag it and then press and hold the control key, that little dimension thing will go away. I'll drop it on category. It creates this calculation down here. It's the same exact one, little fixed LOD, quick fixed LOD. Some of my favorite tips are related to the order of operations. If you're not really in tune with the order of operations, you're missing out on a lot of things you can do in Tableau, and you're probably fighting to figure out where mistakes are made. So probably the most common fixed LOD is, well, you want your dimension filter to, the most common use for the order of operations, you want your dimension filter to calculate before your fixed LOD. Well, you'll put that on context, right? So context filter calculates before your fixed LODs, and that fixed LOD will calculate after whatever your data set is filtered. One of the other cool things that I love to do is to use a table calc filter. So I'm going to talk about the use case here. Just to rub it into Ken, I brought this number of favorites on Tableau Public data set. It's a little outdated, but you see me at number 2 and Ken at number 3. And I looked through this list. Yeah, there's Kriebel again, number 1, Adam McCann, amazing work. Pradeep, Geoff Schaefer. Geoff Schaefer actually works with me. He's actually my boss. So we got me at 2, Geoff at 6. The question I want to answer is, where's my colleague Danushki De La Vera? You may know her. She's incredible. Curious where she ranks. So the idea might be, well, let's just filter the data set. Let's just do this. I'll just filter down to Kevin. And this is a abbreviated data set. There's lots more Kevins in there. Let's do Geoff, and let's do Danushki. All right, so it shows, wait a minute, it shows me at 1. Well, we knew Kriebel was at number 1, and Geoff at 2, he was at number 6, and D at 3. I call her D. So what's going on here? Why is this rank being calculated? I probably should have told you. I'm showing sum of favorites, and then I'm just showing the rank table calculation, rank of sum of favorites. So I apologize for not saying that earlier. So what's happening here? Well, I have a table calc to calculate rank right here. Table calcs are right here. And then I have a dimension filter right here. So it's filtering the data and then it's ranking them. So what's happening? It's filtering us down to 3 people and it's ranking those 3 people, 1, 2, 3. So how can I get that filter to happen after the table calculation is calculated? Well, you can use what we call a table calc filter. You got to turn this dimension filter into a table calc filter. I am going to pull this off and get us back to where we were. So what you're essentially doing is tricking Tableau, and we're going to use a lookup function. You may have used a lookup function to look up like a previous value or a value next to it. Lookup is a table calculation, but I'm going to trick it, and I'm going to do a lookup to the minimum profile name, and we're just going to look it up with 0 here. We're not going to go back 1 row, -1. We're not going to go forward 1 row, +1. We're just going to look up the exact value. So if I put that on the filter, we're going to set all for now and then show this thing, and we'll show you what happens differently here. So if I go Kevin, you're probably already seeing what's going on. And Danushki, you can see it's maintained the rank. We have the table calc calculating first, then the table filter calculating second. So it maintained the rank. You see me at 2, you see Geoff at 6, and we've answered the question. Danushki de Oliveira is ranked number 122 in favorites on Tableau Public. Another use case for table calc filters are bands. Let's say I'm just wanting to show the most recent year over year. So let's say it's 2020 and I'm looking at 2019 versus 2018. I can see here that I've got a 20.36% increase in sales from 2018 to 2019. So again, your intuition may tell you, let's just filter out the year. Let's just filter out 2017, 2018. And you see what happens when you do that. That percentage disappears. Let's click 2018. The reason is Tableau needs the 2018 and the 2019 dollars to be able to calculate the percentage change, right? So when I filter out 2018, it's gone. Same like I said before, the dimension filter happens here, table calc happens here. So what we need to do is to get this thing to a table calc. Instead of filtering on the year, we need a table calc filter. All right, what I'm going to use, we could use the lookup to the year if we wanted to, kind of like I did before, but I want this to be a little more dynamic so that when 2020 pops in or 2021 pops in, I'm always grabbing the last one. So I'm going to use the function called last. All right, so this last is a table calculation, and what it does is count the rows in the partition from last to first. So the last row is 0, the second to last is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So by this, I'm just saying last equals 0. That's just a true false. It's always going to give me the last row. If I put that on my filter, hit true, okay? You can see what happens is it filtered out 2018, 2017, 2016, but it maintained that calculation. I can just pull sales off here. I can right click and unshow the header. And we now have this band that I can format. And it doesn't really, you don't have to show all these other years to get to that information. All right. Cool little trick that I learned from Geoff Schaefer. A lot of these have been learned from other people in the community. I'll show that at the end. A lot of them learned from Geoff Schaefer. But one of the things I love to do, especially when I have a lot of charts on a dashboard and I try to remove clutter as best I can, I like to remove this 0 here. And you can do that on any of these axes really easily. All I'm going to do is right click and choose format and set it to axis. And now you have this number format. The trick here is to get rid of the 0 is you always have to set it for some custom format. It can't be automatic. So I'm just going to set it to currency and we're going to set it to K. So it looks just like it was before, but now I'm going to click on the custom and you see all this, I don't know, what I call gobbledygook. What it is here is all the stuff before the semicolon are positive numbers. everything after the semicolon is negative numbers, and everything after another semicolon are zeros. So all I have to do is press semicolon and a space, and it's going to replace the 0 with a space. You see that thing's now gone. I'm going to show you that again just because it's I got tied up on this a bunch when I first started. So it's set to automatic. I'm going to set it to number. I'll just leave it like that. I'm going to hit custom, and I'm just going to hit semicolon space, and that 0 disappears. So again, anything before the semicolon is a positive number format, anything after is a negative, and after the second one is a 0. This is really, really handy if you're building a diverging bar chart. So let's just assume what this is. It's not any real data, but let's just say it's a poll questions, and we've got men versus women, right? These are their responses. And I've just made the men values negative so that they would diverge out to the left, and the women would go to the right, right? So if I wanted to show an axis, I'd probably direct label these bars, but if I wanted to show an axis, it's kind of weird because these numbers are negative. That doesn't make any sense. It's not really a negative percentage. So we can fix this with this little formatting trick. So right click and format. We go to the axis and percentage. Now it's set, not set to automatic. Sorry, set the percentage. And I've hit custom here. You'll see a little bit different formatting here. It just shows the positive number. So if I add a semicolon and type negative 0%, that's going to maintain this negative. But if I get rid of the negative, boom, down here, we've got rid of this negative value on our axis. And if we want to get rid of the 0, I just hit semicolon space again, and that 0 is gone. So some cool little tricks for changing and removing clutter on your axis. I will warn you, on Tableau Public, this doesn't seem to be working right now. So I've got a ticket in with Tableau to get that fixed. All right. There's a lot of times that I like to create hex maps. In my business, we don't really create normal maps. I just hate the way, Montana, this huge area, but low population. And then you compare it to like New Jersey, where the New Jersey population is 10 times the size, but the area is, I don't know, 1/10 of the area. So it gives all this visual weight to Montana. So we tend to use hex maps over standard maps. And what do we do to bring in a hex map? Well, we go to our data source, we go edit our data source. Hopefully this doesn't spin on me. Yeah, it's going to. I go to my data source, and then I have to join up to, say, a shape file, or I can join up to the shapes XY coordinates that Matt Chambers developed initially. In fact, I have it right here. It's just XY coordinates for all the different states, right? Column and row coordinates. And so you have to do a join, right? This took me 3.5 years to figure out. Why do I have to do a join? All I have to do is create this big long hex statement, case statement for hex column and for hex row. So this is doing the same thing as joining up the spreadsheet. So I'm just doing it in Tableau. Anytime I create a hex map, I just copy these calculations out of template, bring it in, and we've got a nice, let's see if we can just do it real quick. And you can see, I don't know why these things aren't reversed in the first place, but you can see the makings of a hex map. And you can avoid that join, which can be really, really handy if you're using published data sources and things like that. Now, you look at this and you look at that gigantic case statement and you say, well, gosh, that probably took forever to type out. When, then, 51 different times. Well, I created this case statement generator a while ago. You can get this on our website, fleurlidgetwins.com. It just helps you write long case statements. I'll show you how I would do it. If I wanted to do column and row, I would just say, I'm just going to copy some of it. It's down to Iowa. I'll say when it's these guys, then this. And we can say, change this to state. And then we can just copy this entire statement, drop it into a calculation. We have this case statement in just a matter of seconds versus typing out 51 lines of when and thens. So cool little trick there. All right. Let's get by all that stuff. All right. The last tip I'm going to show before we get into those tips you never saw coming. That's supposed to be built up and tension and all that, but probably not case. What I'm going to show is well, right here, what we have is sales over month, and we've got it broken out by state. I call this a spaghetti mess. Almost impossible to see anything that's going on. You might drop state on color, and it makes it a million times worse. So how do we typically resolve a situation like this? I think most of us will probably create a parameter and then color based on the selected parameter. So let's do that. Let's create parameter. I'm going to call it state parameter. I'm going to make it a string. I'm going to make it a list, and then I'm going to come in here and feed in the value from state. Okay, now we have this state parameter. Well, we don't need to go through all that. That was like 5 steps. All I really need to do is go to the state field, right click, create parameter. I think I did it. Try it again. It'll auto populate a state parameter as a string parameter, and it'll give you all those state values in there. So more like 1 click versus 5 clicks to do that. Now, I did go ahead and create that up here. So same guy here, state colon. If I pick this, it does nothing. Parameters don't do anything on their own. They have to be tied into a marks card or into a calculation. So I've created this calculation called highlight by state. Pretty simple. When the state parameter equals the state in my viz, in the state in the actual visualization, then that value is true. I'll put that on color. I've preset this to be red for the true values. And so now I can come through and I can pick California. We can see these big numbers for California, and Idaho, probably tiny numbers for Idaho. So we can kind of explore that data in that manner. Now, what if I have this on a dashboard? And so here you have that same chart showing sales over time by state. And then I have bar charts just aggregating those state values. So we can see those big sales for California. So this is the total sales. This is the sales by month. I can come up here and pick California, but it doesn't seem right that I'd have to do that when California is right here. So what I'd like to be able to do is click on California and make all this stuff happen just by interacting with the visualization. And we can do that using parameter actions. You can do it during using set actions as well, but I greatly prefer parameter actions. I'm going to first go over here and add that color to this chart. So both of them are working. Again, excuse me. If I go to DC, you're going to see DC get highlighted. What a terrible choice. How about Kentucky? That's actually where I live. All right. So I want to click on here. First off, that weird thing just happened when I click it. It's like this weird highlighting, especially when it's on a black background. So we'll come back to that. So let's get it to where I can click on a bar and it'll highlight both charts. So I'm going to go to dashboard actions, change parameter, state parameter. Should always name these because they get really confusing if you don't. We're going to do the bar chart. We're going to set it to interact with the state parameter, and we're going to send this state value to that parameter, and we're going to do it on select. Okay. So what should happen when I click on California? It should send California to this parameter, highlight California in both of them. Again, we got that weird highlighting there, but you can see it selected California down here. That's fantastic. I click New York, same thing happens. All right. But what if I want to click off here and just clear it out? I don't want anything to be red. Well, we can do that with a new feature that they added to parameter actions recently. See if I can find the stinking thing because I have so many of them. What's this called? Par. Okay. Down here, the bottom right corner, they recently added this clearing selection value. Right now it's set to keep current value. So as I clear it, it's staying set to New York. But if I set this to say none, remember what the calculation says when the state parameter equals the state, then highlight it red basically, right? Well, there's no states named none. So this should, in theory, as I clear this, send a value of none to the parameter, and then those things won't be equal anymore, and all these things will go back to gray. So let's see if that works. Let's start by just picking California, make sure everything's working good. Still that weird highlighting. Let's see if we can fix that. And then when I clear it, shoot, nothing happens. Why did nothing happen? Well, it's because this parameter. Remember, we created a string parameter and we listed all these finite values. None is not in this list, right? So when you try and send none to this parameter, it's not happening. Honestly, we don't need a list anymore. Let's just set it to all. That's going to allow all values. So as I click New York, it's going to send New York to it. It's going to highlight New York. And then as I click off of it, it's going to send none to that parameter. It's going to clear this out completely. So once again, California, and then none, and it's going to clear this thing out. Now, this weird highlighting thing that is a default Tableau thing is driving me insane, especially on this black background. So one of my favorite tricks ever is to get rid of that with the simplest calculation you've ever written in your entire life. I call it a fake highlight, quote, quote. You can put whatever garbage you want in there. It doesn't matter at all. We're going to add this fake highlight to detail, go back to the dashboard, and I'm going to select something just to kind of show you what happens. We're going to create a dashboard action. We're going to create a highlight action, fake highlight. Yeah, I know, I'm all caps and stuff. I'm not worried about that. We're going to set it, this bar chart to this bar chart on selected fields, and we're going to pick this fake highlight. So bar chart, fake highlight on select. Watch what happens when I hit OK on this. That thing disappears. And what's happening is I've got the parameter action that's happening, but it's also sending this fake highlight, and it's clearing out that selection, right? So much, excuse me, a much cleaner design than what we showed before. All right, I have 13 minutes. So let's see what we can do to kind of go through that section of you never saw coming. You see, I really highlighted this never saw part. What the heck am I talking about? Excuse me for 1 second. I'm going to take a drink and cough. All right, so what do I mean by never saw? I mean, I'm obviously putting big stock in never saw here. Well, what I'm talking about is things you've never saw because they're invisible, right? Everybody gets what I'm talking about right now, right? I guess that's not very clear. It's because I'm using something called a transparent shape. Now, people are probably going, all right, what the heck is he talking about still? I wish he would get to the point. Well, a transparent shape is something that's really, really versatile and allows you to save all kinds of time and really trick Tableau in a bunch of different ways. I use them in every single visualization I create. And I bet that 99, hopefully that number is going down, but 99% of people haven't actually used one. What is a transparent shape to start with? Well, let's just go to the next slide and we'll draw one here in PowerPoint. I'm gonna go to Insert, Shape, and draw out a square. Now, if I go to Shape Fill, I can get rid of the fill by saying No Fill. You see, I just got an outline now. And then I go to Shape Outline and say No Outline, and my shape has disappeared. But in reality, it's still there. It's just completely transparent. I can right-click this, save as picture. I can save it to my shapes repository in Tableau, and then I can bring it into Tableau and use it for all kinds of cool little things. All right, so what can we use it for? This is going to take a second and just a little bit of setup. I should note, I've got a blog post on this on Fleurlidge Twins. Just search for transparent shapes in Fleurlidge and you'll find it. So first use case, and this is going to take a bit to get to the point, but you'll kind of understand why I'm using it. This is an example. So this is just a table of dimensions, category, subcategory, manufacturer, just kind of showing my hierarchy. And then I get this weird ABC thing, right? My old trick to getting rid of the ABC in one of these is to change it to a polygon. Well, when you change something to a polygon and you like animations, animated transitions in your visualizations, polygons will stop that from working at all. So I never use polygons anymore. Maybe we could change it to text, and I can put quote, quote here and throw that on text. Okay, that gets rid of it. But then I get this weird thing in the tooltip of showing quote, quote, and actually can select this oddly. That's weird. So let's not do that. Let's change it to a circle. Maybe I make the circle really small. Yeah, maybe. And then maybe I bring this opacity all the way down. Okay, and then you still have this weird thing here. This kind of stuff is just like, all right, maybe it's over the top, but it just drives me crazy. What I like to do is change this to a shape, go to shape, and I select this transparent shape that I showed you before. I even put an @ symbol before it because I use it so often. I'm going to set this to transparent, right? You couldn't see the shape because it's transparent. Now it's gone. It's not in the tooltip, and I can't even select it like you could with the text box or that little circle. So that's kind of the start. Now, this maybe not be that common of a use case, but there are a bunch of them. This is something that we do at work a lot. This is where we're trying to call out a certain percentage. So this is a random line, percentage of accounts versus profit, 50%. of my accounts, I expect 50% of my profit. Well, I like to call out certain ones. I start off with basically just a dual axis line chart and dual axis in a circle mark on the other axis. Well, how do I isolate one of these specific marks? Well, we might write a calculation that says when the percentage of accounts equals 0.3, then give me the sum of profit, else no. And then I'd put this up as the secondary axis. So we're writing a calculation and I'm changing what's on my axis. We don't have to do that at all. All we have to do is change this to a shape mark, slide percentage of accounts onto shape, right? Then we can come in here. We can make everything but 0.3 transparent. And we have this mark. We could do this with a parameter. We could do it with a calculation we want. But this keeps the same calculation, same field on my dual axis. I don't have to even write another calculation. I can just go in there and make it. We can do the same thing with highlighting the last point in a dashboard versus all this kind of clutter. My absolute favorite trick on the use case for this comes from Josh Tapley. I mentioned him earlier. And this talks about bands. So if you create a text band and you click on it, you get this weird blue highlighting. And that always drove me nuts. You can't change the blue color. You can't change this outline. It's just kind of there. And it's a weird experience for users because they see that happen. They go, uh-oh, what'd I do? Did I do something wrong, right? And sometimes you do want users to click on a band. You want them to be able to filter and highlight based on these bands, right? So great trick for this is to use a transparent shape. I'm going to duplicate this just to kind of show you. So this is set as a text band. You can see if I click in here, we still got this blue weirdo stuff. The simplest way to fix this is to change this to a shape. You can see a circle mark come in. When I go change it to a transparent shape, transparent. Now, when I click on this, you see what happens. I don't get that outline. I don't get that blue color. I just got this really clean experience. So if I go back to the dashboard, this was the original. This is the cleaned up version. Just a lot nicer experience. And I really love the way this highlights those numbers if you are interacting with them. So use this. Every single big number I create always has a transparent shape tied to it. I used this transparent shape on the forums 3 years ago. Guy wanted to show year over year change. So this is 2017 sales, 2018 sales. He wanted to look exactly like this. He even drew a picture of it. And I put a circle mark on the secondary axis. Well, when you throw a circle mark, it shows a circle on the 17 number and a circle mark on the 18 number. Well, that's not what we want because there's no real year over year change because we don't have the value for it. So I just use a shape. One has a circle and one has a transparent mark. This one is actually from Luke Stanky. He's a fellow Tableau Zen master and runs the company Tessellation. He wrote a blog post about transparent shapes as well. Actually beat me to it while I was writing mine, which kind of got me, or Luke. So what he was showing is sales by subcategory, but he wanted to show the change year over year. So for example, phones is number 1 this year. It was number 2 last year. It moved up 1 spot. Chairs was number 1 last year. It's number 2 this year. It moved down 1 spot, right? Up 3 spots. So that's a little hard to understand. So he wanted to add some shapes here to it. All right, blue, good. That makes sense. Moved up 1 spot and down 1 spot, up 3 spots. What's this yellow one with a blank number here? Well, this one was the same as it was last year. It didn't move any spots. So we can really fix this with a transparent shape really easily. I can maybe change these to be a little more intuitive, up, down, and then we're going to change this one to be a transparent shape. All of a sudden, this is a lot more clear. Up 1, down 1, up 3, absolutely nothing happened here. So really nice. Just up to this point, I've done just transparent shapes, things you're actually pulling out of your shapes repository. But there's lots of use cases for transparent images as well, not just shapes, but images, like images down here as well. So one of these is hyperlinks. So if you were to type text into a text file, if you were to type a hyperlink into a text box like I did here, HTTP, Wikipedia, blah, 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 you can click on it, right? It turns that into a hyperlink. And we went to Tableau Software's Wikipedia page. But I typically don't want to type all this information out. I just want to sort of do it like this. I want to have a little hyperlink on the word Tableau software. We can't do that in a text box in Tableau. So what I've done is just type the text here, black text, and then this text I just made blue and underline, and we're going to add a hyperlink using a transparent shape. Now, this does require floating, so those tilers that are against floating, I apologize, but we're going to drag a transparent image on top of that Tableau software text. I'm going to go choose a transparent shape. Shapes, transparency at the top of my list. I got a couple of them, but it doesn't really matter. And then I'm going to paste that URL in there. So what we have is a transparent shape with a URL open when image is clicked. Okay, I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. If I put this into presentation mode, nobody can tell that transparent shape is there, but if I hover over it, you can see my cursor becomes a hyperlink, and I can click on that and it'll be a hyperlink to the Tableau software Wikipedia page, right? So I do that in this blog. I did this a lot of my Tableau public vizzes that reference blog posts. I just float a little transparent shape over the text and create a hyperlink. On my company's Tableau public page in April of 2020, I created a big unemployment workbook. I started exploring this unemployment data and ended up with 18 different dashboards. And to allow navigation, I created this sort of visual table of contents. This is using just images. So you can see I took a snapshot of the image, turned it into a navigation button. And then when I click on this, it'll navigate to the individual dashboards. Problem you might be seeing and worried about is that spike for unemployment's right here. Well, that actually happened nearly 2 years ago, right? Why is the spike the last thing in this chart, like it happened recently? Well, the reason is I took a snapshot in April of 2020, and that's when the spike existed. So some people say, well, don't you want to make this dynamic? Couldn't somebody be confused by seeing the spike, what appears to be in January of 2022 when it happened in April of 2020? Well, you can do that. You can create a dynamic table of contents. I just did this with two different sheets just for simplicity. You can't drag images on here because they won't be dynamic, but you can drag sheets onto a dashboard. They'll be dynamic. So let's say this represents dashboard 1, this represents dashboard 2. So I've got this sheet on here, just like any dashboard, but if I click on it, nothing happens, right? Nothing happens at all. Well, what I can do is drag on a navigation button. And you probably see what I'm going to do. I'm going to set this, let me see what I have here. Okay. I'm going to set this button to navigate to, I don't know why it's OC. I'm going to make it an image button. I'm going to choose this transparent image, hit OK. Now, when your users are using it, they can't see that button, just like the hyperlink, but if they click it, it navigates them to that dashboard. So this is a truly dynamic table of contents where you're using sheets that update with your data, and then you're just putting this navigation button on top of that. My blog post for the transparent shapes uses this exact same technique. I created this background image in PowerPoint just with some kind of tessellating hexagons, and I just put transparent shapes on top of them as navigation buttons. Did a similar thing on my, let's see if this thing loads, on my NBA Jam viz. When I looked at NBA Jam, I did that with the button. I like to use this when I'm using parameter actions and buttons. So this is showing sales over the course of a year, January through December. And I can pick one of these. If I pick 2016, it's going to send the parameter value of 2016 and filter this chart. I'm not going to get too much into that. But when I click on this, look what happens. Look at that button. Doesn't that look so weird? It's got this weird outline and it just looks odd. I don't know. It looks clean there. When I click it, it looks really odd. So I kind of cheat the system. I put this in the background that still is interacting with the parameter actions, but then I copy that sheet. I copy that sheet that still has 2016 through 19 tied to it, but I just, instead of applying buttons to it, I apply transparent shapes. So I've overlay this, and when I click this, it still sends that parameter action and change that thing in the background, the buttons in the background, but I don't get that weird selection. So we have this versus this, for me, a totally different experience, much cleaner for our users. I use this technique for no polygons technique I wrote a couple years ago. My brother used this for his scrollable timeline template. I use it in games all the time. In February 2020, we had planned the Tableau user group of the century. We had 9 Tableau Zen Masters that were going to be in town, and my colleague decided we should play the old game Hollywood Squares, but call it Zennywood Squares. So I built this to play that game, and I don't want a bunch of clutter, so I use a bunch of transparent buttons. So let's say if we wanted to pick Steve Wexler in the center square, we would pick Steve Wexler, and it would highlight Steve Wexler. And let's say we answer the question, and he got an O for O gets the spot. Same way with me. My X gets the spot, right? So these are all using transparent shapes. Unfortunately, the tug was planned for March 2020 when the world shut down, and who knows we'll ever get to do that again. I've used transparent shapes on pretty much every dashboard, but the most I've ever used it is on my data fam finder. This is published on Tableau Public. The intention is really simple. I wanted to connect people. I wanted people to say, hey, if I'm traveling to, I don't know, Chicago, who is in Chicago that I might want to connect with and have lunch with? I would zoom in, but I'm going to just say for now, maybe I'm going to India. So what I can do is I can click in India. It creates this buffer calculation. It calculates the distance based on this parameter, 1,000 kilometers, and it tells me all those different people that have registered their name on the data fam finder. On the public version, you actually click this button and download that list, and it's got their Twitter account and their LinkedIn, and you can connect with them. Pretty cool stuff, right? So how did I click a mark that doesn't exist? You're probably going, how's he drawing this? Because when you interact with a visualization, you can only click on the actual marks. I can't just click in the middle of Brazil. Well, if you do that, you'll zoom in. I can't click in the middle of Russia, right? You need to interact with a mark. Well, what I've done is I went and found 26,000 cities across the US. I brought that into a Google sheet and then separately allowed people to register. Those are the red dots, and it kind of union with that Google sheet. So I have a list of people that register their name plus 26,000 cities in the world. And if we show this, what I've done is the people that registered get a mark. And when we click, we put that mark that I clicked gets an X. Everything else gets a transparent shape. And you see if I just change this to say this, you'll see all these transparent shapes appear. What does that allow me to do? Well, that allows me to click basically anywhere. You can see I've pretty much got that hand cursor anywhere I go because there's a transparent shape underneath it. As I click, it sends that value to a parameter. It then calculates the distance and then gives me a list of those people that are in that general area. I'm going to do my best to pick Chicago. Probably did a terrible job. I don't know who's all registered in your area, but there you go. So this case uses 26,000 transparent shapes. All right. That's all I have. I did go a few minutes over. Again, the Transparent Shapes blog post can be seen on our website. Just go to fleurlidgetwins.com and search for transparent. You'll find it. Yeah, how about some use cases? Yeah, I already did that, right? Special thanks to these people. I got a lot of these tips from these different folks, probably from other people as well, but just want to make sure I call them out. I have no idea if you guys are wanting to take questions, if we want to move on to the next speaker, but I appreciate you guys having me. And that's it for me.
Thanks, Kevin. There's only a couple questions in the chat. They could probably be answered super, super quick, so maybe we can hit those really quick. But first question was, can case statements be nested?
Yeah. I think so. Shoot, can they? I think I've done it.
I wouldn't know.
I don't know the answer to that question.
I don't know why
I should.
I think I've done it.
Yeah, I think I've done it as well. But how about this? When Geoff is presenting, I'll research that and I'll type it in the chat or in the
Awesome.
Q&A.
I'll leave it unanswered. What version of Tableau does the new comment functionality appear in? So the /*.
Good question. The nice thing about having your own website is that I can go back to my own blogs and remember stuff that I've forgotten by then. So I do know it's in this blog post. I'll tell you 1 second.
21.4.
What's that?
It's 21.3 or 21.4, if I recall
Or
correctly.
20.
Or does it go back even further?
Let me look. You might be right. You might be right. Yeah, I was thinking it was in 2020.3. That's when the in operator came about.
Correct.
You're right. I think it was in one of the 2021 versions.
Yeah, they didn't make it easier to comment out stuff until last year.
Right. That sounds right. Yeah. I was thinking about the in operator. Yeah. Listen to Geoff, not me. He knows clearly.
Oh, no.
More than me. No. You're right. I was wrong.
If you think I can keep track of all of our releases and everything that's in them, oh no, you're sadly mistaken.
Yeah, I typically have to just go back to my website and where I wrote about new features and figure it out from there. So, yeah.
Someone else asked for that transparency link. You put it on the screen. I'll actually post it in the chat while Geoff's talking so we can get on to Geoff. But Kevin, thank you very much for the super fans, for the mustache, and for all the content. It was very good, all of it.
All right. Thanks for having me, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Kevin, thank you. That was fantastic. As a solution engineer who's been at Tableau for a little under 4 years, I am still always amazed to listen to the true experts of our tool share their trade. Awesome. Very, very, very awesome presentation.
Thank you.
I always
appreciate
learn
that, Geoff.
something.
Thank you.
And that's, thank you. And hopefully, just want to confirm, can you guys see a slide that says Tableau and thank you on it in a lot of different languages? And can you guys clearly hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So Kevin, thank you. Thank you for all of you who have taken an interest to come in and share about Tableau, to learn something about Tableau. Part of what makes Tableau is the fact that it's not just a data and analytics platform. Tableau is a community. Tableau is, in certain cases, almost seems like a cult, and I absolutely love being a part of it. I don't have an introductory slide other than starting off by thanking you, but my name is Geoff Somerville. I am an SE who is in the life sciences, healthcare and life sciences space. Right now, I support solely pharmaceutical companies. However, in the past, I did support both Baxter and Cardinal, as well as some other companies. Prior to that, I actually supported a lot of providers. So I've been around HLS for a long time, and I've now been either employed by Tableau or a customer of Tableau for over 9 years. Kind of crazy to think that. What we're going to talk about today is kind of a hodgepodge of things that Alex and I kind of discussed, and it was things that he found interesting. And hopefully all of you will find this to be interesting as well. Probably not nearly as interesting as all the cool stuff that Kevin just showed you, but we are going to talk about some of the new things that are in Tableau. One of the things that we're doing is we're going to start truly leveraging on not only our platform, but our ecosystem, and figuring out new and different ways to bring that ecosystem together and organize it and help all of you find out what's going on in the community in a more centralized place. Now, by no means is this going to replace everything that's out in the community and going to take away from some of the websites and different things that Kevin and his brother have created and others have created through the past. It's more so just to help people find things very quickly. And one of the things that we've done is just recently we launched what's called the Tableau Exchange. Now, we've had the extension gallery since 2018 was when the extension gallery was originally launched. But now we're extending that beyond just dashboard extensions. Included in the Exchange right now is an extension gallery. It's going to have different connectors. It's going to have some different accelerators that we have, and I'm going to show you where to find all of this. And soon, I don't know if all of you saw in TC when Francois was presenting where we're headed, and colleagues from the dev team. Pretty soon, this exchange is also going, part of what the extensions are going to be Viz Extensions, where people are going to be able to create new and novel ways of doing of creating visualizations that are going to be brought natively into a Tableau like desktop experience. So the marks cards, the color card, you're gonna be able to interact with them where you're moving pills around and doing different things with those. That's not what we're here to talk about today, but certainly something that's super exciting. So we want to make this exchange again to simplify how you can find things, to allow you to seamlessly integrate with a lot of the wonderful work that's already out there in our ecosystem. And then also to accelerate your ability to leverage Tableau and really get a increased return on investment. So what do we mean by that? Well, one of the things that was introduced is called Tableau Accelerators. I am going to jump over and kind of show you where you find all of this wonderful thing, and then show you an example of what an accelerator is. If you go to tableau.com and you go to Why Tableau, we now have a sub-menu called Tableau Economy. If we click on the Tableau Economy, you'll see that we have nicely branded websites with our slide decks as well. But as you scroll down, you'll see the Introducing the Tableau Exchange. You can click on that, and it's going to take you to our new Tableau Exchange. Now, the easier way to remember that is just exchange.tableau.com. But I don't know about you, I can't always remember where things are at. I can remember tableau.com. So if you show me where to go, I can find things. And on here, we have kind of the top listing of our dashboard extensions, connectors, and accelerators. However, you can drill in and start seeing what are all of the dashboard extensions. I'm going to show you a different way that you can get to the dashboard extensions here in a moment. But from this page, you can see everything that people have created and that have been shared with Tableau to be able to post on the extension. Little side note about extensions. When we released dashboard extensions, it was never the intent that any extension that anybody created be posted within the Tableau gallery, now Tableau Exchange. In fact, what we suspect is that greater than 80% of all of the extensions that have ever been created, we don't even know about, because they've been leveraged for very specific use cases within companies. But here, if you want to understand where you can find things, we have nice navigation here. If you want to only focus on advanced analytics, you can see where advanced analytics extensions are. What I do love is there's always this free button. So things, if you just want to experiment around with stuff and don't want to have to pay for it, you can check on the free button and see everything that's free. Some of these things that are free, though, are going to be free up to a certain extent. And then there's going to be kind of that whole idea of in-app purchases, just to make you aware. So we started with extensions, we moved to connectors. So although Tableau natively has now over 90 ways to connect natively to different data sources, inevitably, there is always something new coming out. There's always some new technology or new way even for connecting to various data sources. And here what you'll see is now we're starting to publish out all of the different data connectors that people have shared with us and they'd like to have posted on the exchange to help drive connectivity across our community. And the final thing that I want to talk about from the exchange are our accelerators. It's escaping me right now, but Salesforce acquired a company early last year. And basically what they did is they built accelerators for Salesforce to help, again, drive adoption, help drive increased return on investment. That's been extended now out to Tableau accelerators. Again, you can see all of the different categories. If you want to see which ones are free, you can just click on it and see all of the different accelerators. I'm going to jump into healthcare where there isn't much yet. That's going to be ever growing, but because that's my domain. Here are two accelerators. It's pretty easy to get into an accelerator. You basically just come in, you can see an explanation or something. It describes what it is. It tells you what key performance indicators that are being addressed. It tells you what you need to have within your data set. And then you can kind of scroll down and actually see what the accelerator looks like. You can interact with it. You can see the different, you can see all of the different dashboards that are built within the workbook. Or if you want to go download it yourself, when you click on download, I've already done that for you. Here is, Tableau desktop. It opens up in desktop. It is a extracted data source. So it's a Tableau TWBX file. So it actually has all the data incorporated into the dashboard itself. But now you can see kind of an overlay of what it's trying to do and start diving in to how these were created. So if you have some ideas, becomes really easy to go in and start reverse engineering. And actually, in addition to Tableau Public, where things are, where people have published different ideas of dashboards and visualizations that they've created, this is another way that you can go in and find it. And they're going to be industry specific. One thing that I did want to show you, jumping back to extensions, if you don't know this, there is now a button called the extension gallery or extensions, which is how you've always brought a dashboard extension into a dashboard. However, I do want to make a comment. In late last year, we embedded the extension gallery directly into the tool, both in desktop and server. Gonna jump subjects now. One other thing one of the coolest things that was ever created at Tableau, in my mind, that really simplified people's ability to see and understand data were metrics. This is what a metric looks like. You'll notice that there's now like a little blue ball with now a circle around it. There's more that we've created. So I'm going to come in to just show you some new added features and functionality of Tableau metrics. I actually have, I'm an avid Peloton user. I love my Peloton. Last year, all I did was ride on my bike all of the time. I'm not sure why that didn't load, but ride on my bike all of the time. I've recently gotten into yoga and doing more stretching and stuff. But here I just wanted to show you an example. If let's say I want to focus on 45-minute rides and I want to look at my output, I can come in and I can create a metric. And what I'd like to do here is create, I can now choose, you couldn't do this before in the date range. You couldn't select what you wanted to see. On server, you could do that on mobile when you were looking at it on an iPhone or other mobile device. Now you can switch how long you want it to look out. I'll keep it at 52 weeks. But now you actually have the ability to change this to a constant. What you were able to do that before. So now if I type in, let's say 10 to my constant, it's showing me above, but there was no indicator of what was good or what was bad. So here now what you'll see is I have a status where I can say above is good, at the value is neutral, and below the value is bad. And notice that the metric now started turning green. I'm going to go ahead and create that metric. We'll go ahead and overwrite it. And now when I jump to the metric, notice that I have a green dots and I have red dots. And so I'm going to take a little dig on our developers here because I am big in doing visualization best practices. Hopefully you've talked to somebody from Tableau before and they've told you that using red and green might be a little bit challenging for about 7% to 11% of the population. Those who are colorblind can't see the difference between green and red. However, my guess is they did this because that was those are the easiest adopted colors. For green is good, red is bad. I suspect that in future releases, you will be able to set these colors. So that is metrics. Now what I wanted to jump over to is a little bit of a story about advanced analytics. And I want to come over and show you where this story started. There is if you're not familiar with pharma and biotech, there is a website called clinicaltrials.gov. And what clinicaltrials.gov is a consortium run by the federal government where industry and also it can actually be educational. Anybody who's doing clinical trials can push data up to clinicaltrials.gov. And so what you can see here is actually a wealth of information. Now, clinicaltrials.gov doesn't make it super easy for somebody who uses Tableau to connect to it. However, there is a consortium called the Clinical Trial Transparency Initiative based out of Duke University, who on a weekly basis, leveraging the ct.gov API, scrapes all of the data from ct.gov and puts it into a relational database inside of Postgres. Now, if that wasn't cool enough, they will actually allow you to go to ctti.com or .org, and you can fill out a form, and they'll actually give you a read-only account to that Postgres. So what that's allowed me to do is I have a prep flow that's going and running once a week that is going and connecting data, doing some, it's connecting several different tables, combining some stuff, and then allowing me to write back to a Postgres database and also to a hyper extract that I'm then building visualizations off of. You can see that I have a long standing run history. I can see my rows generated, but that was great. But we wanted to take it to the next step. Well, one of the things that is missing from the ct.gov data is therapeutic area. And there's a lot of people who are very interested in therapeutic area. In fact, somebody very graciously, actually it's a few different people, were collaborating on writing some code that is Python code on how to take conditions for every single study that is within the ct.gov database, look at those conditions, use libraries of information from the NIH, and go start codifying based on conditions and multiple conditions together, and assigning therapeutic areas to those conditions. Now, this is just a Python script. Well, me and some other colleagues started then thinking, well, wouldn't it be cool if we could take that Python script and we could take the ct.gov data, create a data prep flow that is going to combine some information and then allow us to create a therapeutic area field or table rather to go along with our ct.gov data. In the next 10 minutes, I'm going to just kind of walk you through what we did here. So the Python script was put into Python, and then we published the script into an area like Jupyter Notebook, IDE, whatever you want to use to run Python on. But we also instantiated a TabPy server, which is our Tableau Python integration server. We have one running internally. It's actually all of this is running on AWS. And so what we did is we started running a flow that on a weekly basis is going out and processing all of the conditions for all of the studies and then assigning multiple different therapeutic areas based on those conditions for every single study. And what I thought we'd do is I'll just run you through real quick how that's working. This is a prep flow that's a little bit more basic. But here what I've done is I am connected to the Clinical Trials Transparency Initiative. It's actually called the AACT database. I don't recall what the acronym of AACT actually stands for, but here are all my tables that are coming or that are part of that schema that I'm connecting to. I'm plain and simply bringing in studies and sponsors and browser conditions. And then I have a node here that is that's connecting to my TabPy server. And then I have a function that's called clinical therapeutic area mapping.py. So it's calling on that function. For anybody who's not sure how you connect Tableau Desktop or Tableau Prep to a TabPy server, you basically just come down to settings and performance, and then you'll see manage analytics extension connection. When I come in here, here's my analytics extension connection. It's fairly simple as long as you know what the URL to the server is, and TabPy is most likely going to be on port 9004. You sign in, and now you're connected to TabPy. Now, one other thing that I did for purposes here is what you'll see is we're looking at Pfizer right now. I also introduced in our last release of Tableau Prep was the ability to do parameters. So here I have actually created a parameter, and I'll show you how this parameter works. This is build one, mind you. There are lots of features and functionality that I would love for it to do that it doesn't yet. But basically, if you have a list of all, I have put in a list of different sponsors that I know exist within the clinicaltrials.gov data. And it's the same way you've made parameters in the past. You pick the data type, you pick what you want the current value to be, and then you can have it prompt at runtime. And so what you basically get is then within a node in Tableau Prep, you have to come in and you create something like Kevin was showing you earlier. You have to connect that parameter to an actual value, to a field. So here we're connecting the sponsor field to the selected parameter. And finally, what you end up with, now that we have a parameter, we have our live data source connected, we've got our analytics node that's going to process. When I come here and I press run, I'm going to go select, I have Korea University because I know it's a pretty small data set. And watch what happens down here. I'm going to set that set, and now I'm going to run my flow. And what's happening now is the data is being pulled in like a normal prep flow would do. And I have some joins that are happening here. I'm combining some data. At this point in the flow, the data is leveraging that parameter. So now it's only sending in data for, it just flipped, Korea University. And then all of that data is going, so all the studies for Korea University are now taking those conditions, doing a little prep, and then pushing it into the TabPy, so my analytics node. And now all of those conditions are flowing back through the TabPy server. It's looking across that algorithm. It is assigning a therapeutic area to them. And then it's going to join in. Finally, once that pushes through, we remove some nulls. I join back some information to my sponsor, and then it pushes it out. And so now the flow is done. And I'm just going to select, so I'm highlighted here. And now I'm going to hit Command R, and what you're going to see is the data is going to refresh because it's a live data source, and of course because this. Oh, I hate it when things don't work. Let's see what's going on. Let me go to my data. So not sure why my short key would work, but there we go. So we just ran that prep flow and actually went through, and for 44 studies, went through and created the therapeutic area. So that is all that I wanted to present today. And I will give 4 minutes now for some different questions if there are any. If not, then we can proceed and actually give Brian a few extra minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Geoff. I don't see any in the Q&A at the moment.
So one thing that I would say, as you are looking at doing more and more with advanced analytics, please reach out to your sales rep and solution engineer. Talk to us about what you're wanting to achieve and accomplish. And if we don't know the answers, we certainly will have people on staff. We actually have a resident data scientist who is on our strategic solution engineering team, who will definitely sit down and work with you and your company on what you're trying to do, help you figure out what the best approach is going to be, and also kind of guide you on that first chance of doing it. So hopefully you guys found this interesting, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Geoff. If anyone has any questions, they can put them in the Q&A, and we'll be monitoring it throughout the session anyways for any of the speakers. But with that, go ahead, Brian.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right, let me share my screen. And let me know when you can see that.
Yep, can see it.
Excellent. Okay, the tricky thing is I need to figure out how to, with this banner in the way, I need to figure out how to go to presentation mode, because that's where I want to be. There we go. Okay. All right. Well, Alex, thank you very much. Everybody, hello. Thanks so much for having me with you today. My name is Brian Smith, and I've been at Cardinal Health for a little over 20 years now. I've used Tableau for about 10 years. And I've been a developer in Cardinal Health's nuclear and precision health solutions segment since May of 2020. There we go. What is Cardinal Health? We are a pharmaceuticals and medical products distributor, and we provide many related services like logistics and data solutions. This is our quick consumption infographic. Please kind of stick a mental pin in this because it's going to come up again. And the nuclear segment that I work for, nuclear, as I said, nuclear and precision health solutions, is a subsidiary. And we develop, manufacture, dispense, and deliver radiopharmaceuticals across the country. A radiopharmaceutical is a radioactive substance that's going into your body. Most of it is used for imaging and diagnosis. So when you go in for a particular kind of scan, often they'll use that, one of those substances to inject into your body and do the scan that way. Some of the substances are used for therapy. They actually have therapeutic value in and of themselves. A handful of them are both. And like every other part of the company, we have a sales force, and those sales folks were our clients for the project that we're going to talk about today. Now, the use case for the sales folks was they wanted to have a scorecard to tell them how they were doing against their quota and which customers were affecting their progress for the better or the worse. But what we're really going to talk about today is context, or specifically the lack of shared context between the people who work with user interfaces all the time, that being us, and people who don't. I had learned from previous projects that our internal clients wouldn't always notice or react to the built-in resources that we had made for them to help them understand how the dashboards would work. For example, I would get a call from a user asking, hey, what does this metric mean? When there was actually a little information icon right next to that metric saying what it meant. So I ended up taking a more skeptical view of our ability to communicate with those users with just the little icons that we favor. Another example is I had a client who, again, because she did not have the context that we have in terms of working with user interfaces all the time, she didn't realize that if you're looking at a date slider with the begin date on one side, the end date on the other side, and then the slider in between, she didn't realize that you didn't have to just use the slider. You could click on the dates themselves and set a specific date. So this poor client was trying to just edge the slider pixel by pixel to get it to show the date that she wanted, which it just wouldn't do. So I was quick to help her with that. And again, that was teaching me that clients don't have instinctive knowledge or contextual knowledge for the stuff that we work with all the time. And as a way of thinking about this, I'll mention that I worked with a senior salesperson, showing her one of our existing dashboards and walking her through over the phone all the things that it can do, how to use particular filters to get the specific result she was after. And we got to the end of that work session and she called it wildly helpful. And I love that phrase so much that means that this presentation has a new title. Now, so what is wildly helpful? It's having a dashboard be so intuitive that it is as if you are sitting next to that user and telling them what everything does. Having it be so self-explanatory, it's as good as if you were actually there. But how do we get there? How do we design dashboards to be understood and comfortably used by people who don't have that long cultivated context? How do we design dashboards to be as if we were right there? Why now? Why is this on my mind now? Well, just to give you a tiny bit of additional background. So before I started this job, when I was working in the main IT organization at Cardinal, I was developing dashboards for small audiences, one at a time, and I would interact with those users a lot before the release. So I would have iteration sessions with them. And so by the time I handed over the dashboards to these teams of 3 or 4 people, they already knew them inside and out. But once I started working in nuclear, I was making dashboards for an entire sales force of over 100 people or something like that. And as much as I love to talk to these folks, I don't get the chance to talk to most of them. I need these things to be that self-explanatory, and they need to understand them without me being right there. All right. So the agenda that we're going to follow today, first I want to talk about challenging those assumptions. Then I want to talk a little bit about color. It's relevant to the rest of it, I promise. And we're going to talk about the approach of explaining the interface, of having human-friendly filters, and showing what's on offer, showing what the dashboard can give the users in a quick and intuitive way. So diving into the assumptions thing. We love our widgets without words. We love our hamburger menus. We love our information icons, things that to us immediately say, hey, you should look at this. But again, what I found from interacting with so many users is that they don't see those things as something they should automatically look at. I'm getting the sense that they see an information icon, for example, as this might just say who wrote the thing, or it might just say, where the data comes from or something like that. This might not be important for me. I was working with a different, I was working with a teammate of mine, and she gave me another great phrase, but she was actually talking about the default presentation of tooltips, how it has all those really weird names for filters or for dimensions. And if you don't actually format them, they look really kind of clunky and techy. And she gave me this great phrase of, this looks like something I should ignore. And I got the feeling that for many of at least my clients, these looked like things that they might as well ignore. So we all have our wall of shame. This is one from early in my career. Here it is. And so looking at this slightly differently, this is from before I learned how to say no. They asked for an awful lot of filters, and I, again, didn't know how to say no. And as I look at this now, I'm thinking most clients would look at this and have no idea how these filters relate to each other. These are taking up 40% of the real estate here, and it doesn't make any sense. So how do you, how do you come at this in a way that clients will understand? So now let's take a look at the dashboard that I built for the sales folks. Now this is a dashboard. It's actually based on Superstore data. It'll take a second. This is not Cardinal data. This is just sales, Superstore sales data. But what I actually built for them is very close to this. So what we've got in this dashboard. What are you doing over there? Oh, I didn't reset one of my parameters. I apologize. I'm giving away all the good stuff. Hang on a sec. Here we go. Okay. So what this is showing us is we've got up in the upper left, we've got our KPIs here. And this is year-to-date sales for, just sales for a month, for a quarter, and for the year-to-date. And then we've got the variance from the previous year, obviously color-coded for shortfall or exceeding. And then the percent variance versus the previous year. We've got a 5-month run rate here, and a run rate is defined as the total for the month divided by the number of business days. Got our filters here, got a leaderboard, in this case of the highest performing categories. And then down here, we have a drill down report that actually has more versatility in the later versions that we'll see in a minute. So this is all fine, but it doesn't have any way of supporting what the users are actually going to be working with. And compare that to this, which is the goal that we'll be pushing toward as we talk about this. So this one has a, it's got an informational overlay button, and I'll actually show this to you in just a minute, but we'll just leave it here for now. It has a more helpful range of filters that you can use here, put together as a sentence. And it has tabs to show, and this is the parameter I got stuck on. It has tabs to show different reports as you like. So you can look at customers, products, or cities. I'll click to go back on that. That is a parameter action like we were just talking about. But again, I'll go into more detail shortly. Okay. Moving ahead to this one. So I built into this overlay here, and this is a trick I learned from Kevin. So I'll be referring to that a little bit more. So this is going to be item number 1 for us, explaining the interface. This will be item number 2, the human-friendly filters. And then this will be number 3, showing what's on offer. Okay, the ugly orange and blue boxes. In many of the differing versions of this, you're going to notice that the containers have blue or orange borders on them. Why are these here? This is a trick that I use that I just wanted to throw in. As I'm building dashboards and as I'm nesting container within container within container, I like to put a border on them, blue for vertical and orange for horizontal, and give them 2 pixels of padding all the way around. This lets me keep track of where the containers are. So if something is supposed to be in a container, I can tell whether it is or not. And then when I'm all done, I take off the borders, I leave the padding, and it gives it a nice clean look and I don't get lost. So that's a tip that I wanted to share. but that's why you'll see these in the working versions as we go along. Okay, time for the digression about color. Where color goes, attention follows. I am a broken record about this when I'm working with our internal Tableau community at Cardinal. I tend to annoy people with various statements on the subject, particularly the people that I work with especially closely, the people that I mentor. I preach the gospel of color minimalism. But all of these boil down to this one idea. Color is a tool to direct attention where you want it to go. And I summed it up like that for a while. That was kind of good enough for me. But what I realized later on is the danger of not looking at it this way. So if you don't intend to use color that way, your users will still interpret it that way. If you have a random thing of red somewhere, that's where they're going to look. And then when we get back to my wall of shame entry here, clearly I did not know this lesson yet. The phrase clown vomit is useful here. I've got all of the default colors there, at least darn near all of them. There's 9 of them, or 8, but might as well be 9. And at the time, I thought that it would be received well. People would look at it and get all excited. I've got a little bit more seasoning now. I know that the reaction is much more likely to be this. You don't know where to look. You don't know what's important. And that is fatal when you're trying to actually convey something. Not least the fact that you've got colors on top of colors that just make it hard to read anyway. So this was not good, but I've gotten a little bit better since then. Another subject is, well, I work for Cardinal Health. And Cardinal Health, that Cardinal is a great name for a company, but if your company is called Cardinal, you're working with red. Exhibit A, right here, the graphic that we looked at before. And red is a great color. It's a great impactful color, especially when it's not trying to compete with a gajillion other colors. But it brings a certain amount of baggage with it. For infographics, again, it's fine. Look at this. This is a terrific infographic. But for data visualization specifically, red carries a certain amount of baggage. Red is usually seen as not good. So that's something that I've always had to be very, very careful about when I'm working with red. Another thing that makes it difficult when working with red in terms of data visualization is that red inspires kind of instant gratification thinking and sort of, short focus on the immediate future. I have not done that research myself, but I don't have to. The fast food industry did it for me. Conversely, blue inspires calm and future-oriented thinking and more analytical mindset. I haven't done the research on that either, but again, I don't have to because the healthcare and insurance industries did that for me. So red is tricky, but red is what we have at Cardinal. So we had the challenge of coming up with a branded palette that includes a vivid red when trying to get past the challenges of either nothing being able to stand up to the red or everything trying to outshout the red, which is what, again, we saw in my wall of shame there. And we literally wrestled with that for years at Cardinal. I have a close colleague who is dedicated, speaking back to something that Geoff was saying, dedicated to the colorblind palette. She loves the blue and the orange, and that works fine. But I wanted something that was more distinctly Cardinal. So here's where I had a breakthrough. When I joined my new team, my teammate sent me a presentation that talked about what our part of the company does. And it was a Cardinal branded thing, and it had this color palette here, this graphic in particular. So there's the red, and it's got this nice teal, and it's got that kind of slate, and it's got the gray. This balances together really well. And I looked at this, and I had long since decided that, too many colors is too many colors. And I'm looking at these 4 colors, I thought, this is all we need. Or at the very least, if this isn't all we need, then we've done something wrong. And so I used this to make this palette, and I've been using it ever since. So this teal color is my new best friend. It stands up to the red, and it doesn't shout. So I use that for what's supposed to be, right up front. the main information, and you saw that in the dashboard that I showed you, and you'll see it again. I've got this one as a backup, which I almost never need. I've got the gray for everything else, for just the graphical elements, borders, things like that, or occasionally for actual data. And when I really, really need people to focus on something, I've got the red. Okay, so not everybody at Cardinal relies on this. I have one colleague who took a lesson from Chantilly Jagernoth and went all in with the red. Red graphical elements around the edge, just a lot of red, and it looked great. So, kudos to Josh. I'm not that bold, and so I've been working with this. All right, so moving on to what we were, our main 3 topics. Explaining the interface. Again, it is my sad conclusion, people don't click on icons. So I decided, well, if they're not going to click on the information icon because they're not sure what it does, why not just put the question right on the button? And why not put the guidance, again, hat tip to Kevin, put the guidance itself right over the interface. So here's what we end up with. Okay, here is the dashboard with the ugly boxes. Click on the button and you get this. Okay, so this is a translucent image. It's a partly transparent image. The black background and then the words. I've got the little dotted lines showing what I want people to look at. Everything is grayed out, of course, because of the background, except for the dismiss button, because I want to be very sure that people know how to make this thing go away. And in fact, in later versions of this dashboard that we use in-house, the dismiss button is red, just to make absolutely sure that people know what they should be doing. So that is how that works. And I will give you a quick rundown of how to do this. But I'm not going to go super technical into it because the time is limited. And again, you can consult Kevin's blog. The way it works is you take a screenshot of the dashboard. So you just have an image. Remember, it doesn't matter what the data values are on your dashboard when you do this, because you only care about where things are. And you're not going to be including the actual screenshot in the image. You're just going to be making a black background. Then in PowerPoint, you paste the screenshot and you build the translucent overlay over the dashboard image. And then you make an image out of everything but the screenshot and you bring it back over. That made no sense at all, but I will actually show you very quickly how it works. This is an overlay template that we have on our team to help you do this. So if I go back to Tableau again, let's back up one. I'm going to leave presentation mode. There we go. I'm going to go to the dashboard menu. I'm going to copy an image of the dashboard. I'm going to come over here. Now I don't want to mess up our template, so I'm going to hold down Control and drag the slide so we have a second one. So this is the copy. Okay, I'm going to paste. There's that. It's all lined up. And I'm going to put this in the back, just like that. Okay, so now we're getting somewhere. Now, notice that we've got arrows that we can move around. We've got a box we can move around, copy, paste as needed. We have a bracket. There are some cases where we want that. And we already have this text, which we can just rewrite to do what we need to do. But I'll just show you what this looks like with the box. I like the one that looks a little bit wiggly, just because I want to make it clear that what you're looking at is not part of the UI itself. So you can have a box, you can put an arrow over here, you can have the text. Okay, so you're getting the idea. You can just put together what you need to do. And when you're ready to actually install it, okay, this is the black background that I just copied. So I'm going to send it all the way to the back. At least it was meant to be the black background. There we go. Okay. And now I can delete this. And I've got all this left. I can select everything. Can group it all. Save it as a picture. Put that wherever you like. I'm actually going to stop doing the stuff here, but you save it as a picture. And then when you come back over into Tableau, you bring in a floating container like this. Drop an image in that floating container, size the container to perfectly cover everything. Oh, wait a minute. That's what you would do. And then you can add a show hide button, configure it, and you're done. So and this is the show hide button, obviously. Okay, again, if you'd like more detail on that, you can find it on Kevin's blog. But that is how you do that. And the response to this has been really terrific. My clients like it a lot. So I recommend it very highly. Okay, so wait a minute, go back into presentation mode. There we go. Okay, so that's how that's done. And that is an after, but we really don't need that now. Okay, human-friendly filters. Again, this is addressing the wall of filters problem. So if you got some filters and you just have simple titles over them, that may not be enough to tell the clients what you're actually, the users, what you're hoping that they'll do and how those things work. And I found it's much more valuable to show how those filters relate to each other. So put them in context with each other. And it occurred to me the best way to do that would be to have the clients build the title. And by building the title, they build the report. And the solution came to me from a rather unusual place, Mad Libs. Mad Libs are, of course, the game where you get somebody else to provide you certain kinds of words, but they don't know what the story is, and then you read the nonsense story. But in this case, I'm having them complete a sentence of the title and putting values into the blanks via the filters. And so what you end up with is something like this. So you've got show me the top, and then you've got top N. Here's the metric. I can actually change that. I can change this to the top 5, whatever I want to do. Can do different time horizons, so I can do whatever I want there. I kind of was unsure about the red borders. I thought it might be kind of too much, but I was talking with another client about this, and he said that the red borders reassured him that the filters were there for him to use, which is a terrific reassurance for me. I thought, okay, then they stay. Human-friendly filters, that's incredibly easy. Use a horizontal container, you turn off the built-in titles, and you just arrange the text and the filters as needed. And keep in mind that when you format some parameters, it'll do the same formatting for all of them in the dashboard. This is just the same thing with boxes showing what the text things are, and then there's a blank over here. So super easy. The third thing is showing what's on offer. So the bottom dashboard here, sorry, the bottom chart here, the requirement was to provide actually 3 charts. And for about 5 minutes when I was first designing this, I thought I might be able to fit all 3. I very, very quickly realized that I couldn't. So it was going to be one at a time. So I thought, okay, I need to have all 3 of them be available, but I need to be able to show at all times what all the available ones are. I could have used a radio button, but I liked better the idea of having, or something like this, a drop down. But I liked a tab idea better. Here we go. And I figured a tab would be more intuitive. And so I looked into doing it that way. So here's how it works. And again, I'm going to go back to something Kevin was talking about as far as a parameter is concerned. So a parameter, you can think of a parameter as being like a switch that you bought at Lowe's that you just taped to the wall. If it's not actually connected to the wiring of your house, it's not going to do anything. So you do that by actually having calculated fields refer to it, and you can control stuff in that way. So the way this works is I have a parameter holding the value of the report that's currently selected, and I'm using tabs that are colored to show the one that's active, and then they're gray to show the ones that aren't. The tabs, each of the tabs is a small sheet, and in fact, it's there are 2 of each of them. There's an on and an off. might have been able to find a more efficient way to do that, but this was easier for me to keep track of. Okay, in addition to that parameter, there's a Boolean dimension for each of these reports to show whether it's the one currently selected. So the customer's Boolean is currently true in this case, product's Boolean is false, city's Boolean is false. Each of the Booleans determines whether the report is displayed and determines which version of the tab you're looking at. So we got parameter, we got Booleans. Here's how they interact with each other. If you change the parameter, that updates the Booleans as necessary. And then the Booleans in turn will change the tabs and the reports. And that's all fine. But what I want is to actually have the tabs do the work rather than have a parameter, like I said, in the form of a radio button or a dropdown. I wanted to be able to click a tab and have that do, because that is something I figured my clients would be able to immediately understand, oh, I need to do that. So I wanted a parameter action on the tabs to kick off this whole chain here. That parameter action is only necessary for the off tabs, because when you're clicking an off tab, you're saying, I want to see this one. If you click at the tab that's already active, that wouldn't do anything because you're already looking at that one. And forgive me for rushing through this a little bit, but I want to make sure I'm respectful of your time. Okay, so when no tabs are hidden, when you can see both the active and the inactive ones, it looks like this. So this is how I packaged it all together. Active, inactive, all together. This is the parameter here. So I can change the report, but the tabs themselves aren't hooked in yet. But now if I come over to this one, this one does have the tabs hooked in. And now watch the parameter here. I'm going to click products, and that will change the parameter, which in turn changes the tabs, changes the report. Again, I've gotten really positive feedback on this as well. They get it, they love it. A little bit of refresh here. There we go. Okay, some final thoughts. Like I said, before my current role in nuclear, I was doing stuff for smaller groups. Now it's much bigger groups. And I'm focusing a lot on this plain language approach, which again, I've got clients specifically saying they really appreciate, and things like this reassured me that the filters were there for me to use. And that's where I want to be, much rather than this looks like something for me to ignore, as my colleague said. And that's how I try to get to this is wildly helpful. Okay. Any questions? And I appreciate you sticking around.
Yeah, Brian, there are a couple in the question and answer. Do you want to take a look? You want me to read them to you, whatever you want?
Please, yeah, go ahead and read them.
Sure. First one. Will this recording be sent out? So for anyone who's still, for the people who are still on, yes, this meeting is being recorded, and I will post the link to the recording on the LinkedIn as soon as it's available. It's usually a day or two after. So that's that. All right, the next one. Is there a way to save the color palette as well as the font type as a theme template so it can be used as a standard and shared across users?
I don't know. The palette that I created, obviously I'm implementing through the preferences file with the 20 colors, and I used the Peloton webpage to do that. It's a super helpful tool. But I don't know about using it more broadly. And here's the thing, I'm in a small part of Cardinal. I used to be the community manager, which is actually how I came to know Kevin. But I am very close to the community, but I never get to actually say, you will do this. I live in the world of persuasion. So short answer, I don't know.
I'm responding in the chat here that we'll post an answer to the LinkedIn as a follow-up. So I'll have, maybe Geoff hint or someone else help me with that, and we'll figure it out and post it there later.
And I look forward to knowing that myself.
Yeah, Kevin responded in the chat. I don't think you can really make templates, but we'll see. We'll see what else we can tell people beyond that.
Okay, other questions? saying kind things. Appreciate that.
Yeah, and thank you for presenting. I appreciate it. It was really good stuff. There was a number of comments either to the presenters or to the public there in the chat about how useful all this content was. So thank you for all of it. It was really good stuff.
And Kevin, I will happily send you the hex codes offline.
What I will do, if Brian, if you are done, is offer a few parting comments before we all go away and end the meeting.
Please do.
The first one is, I'm going to go to the user group online. So I'm going to share my screen. I can share my head again too, for not that anyone really needs to see that. I am supporting the Bengals, but my shirt says Baxter because I do work there too. So there we go. Baxter and Bengals. Let me share my screen. All right, so I'm in LinkedIn, North Suburban Chicago Tableau User Group. And I already put the link to the group in the chat. I believe I'll put it in there again. And I'll say everyone, tug link there. But in particular, I wanted to point out, as we talk about the next meeting, right? So I generally like to have them in the middle month of each quarter because you avoid all the finance people having at the beginning of the quarter, the end of the year, all that kind of stuff. So we would target May. Beyond May, I have posted 2 polls to the user group, and that's why I wanted to point them out. One says, what time do you want to have tug meetings? I don't want you to answer in the chat in the meeting. I want you to answer the poll because I've just posted out there yesterday. Do you want mornings, mid-morning, like this 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., afternoons, after work? Like, what do you want, right? And same thing with what days, right? Do you want Wednesdays, Thursdays? No one wants them on Mondays or Tuesdays, right? But do you want Wednesday, Thursday, or Fridays? So what we want to do is get the larger user group population that's online to say, hey, when would you come to meetings, right? What do you prefer? So the people who are here, obviously you're open to 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., but maybe you prefer a different time, right? Let us know. So that's the point of that. I wanted to point both of those out. The other one is that once we get the recording posted, I will post that to the LinkedIn as well. And the last statement I wanted to say about the user group stuff in terms of future meetings is it was in your invite. But if you are open to presenting or want to get involved, obviously let us know, let me know. I will, yeah, my LinkedIn is right there. I'll just post it there. I'll say contact me if any questions or comments. And you can do it that way. With that, I'll stop sharing, but I'll say thank you again to the super fans, to Kevin, to Brian, and to Geoff. I appreciate all you guys presenting and fitting it in the time. We had a lot of really good content today, so appreciate that. Thank you for everyone for joining, and we'll look to seeing you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much, Alex.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.